Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the House of Selah Ministries as we continue in the series, a deep dive in the book of Hebrews. This is sponsored by the House of Selah Ministries and created by Minister Yakanina, Prophetess Yamuna, and Brother Andrew. This is lesson 24. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide so we can just briefly state what we spoke to at the end of lesson 23. We were talking about the original covenant versus the renewed covenant and how they differ. And we're speaking to the original covenant first. How the original covenant was a physically provided and taught covenant. It was given to Moshe, and Moshe was given to Aaron as the priesthood, who was responsible for teaching and maintaining the services of the Torah as well. And that's what they were supposed to do among the people throughout their generations, right? We were showing how it was dependent upon that priesthood to teach and maintain the services and so forth that are written in Torah. And we ended at this slide here where we talked on Acts 17:2, proving that the Torah was still physically taught, as you saw in the Sabbath in Acts 17:2, where Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. And Luke 4:16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. So it was something that was being done always, teaching always. But we know by reading the book of Hebrews, in chapter 8 specifically, how the priest failed in doing this. And as the priest failed, the people failed as well. So now we're going to move our discussion in how, during this original covenant window, this time, how the priests failed in their duties and the people failed as well. All right, so that's where we're at today. All right, before we get started on it, any questions or adds, elaborations?
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to comment, brother, when you say when the priests failed, the people failed. That's why it says people are that false teachers and teaching false doctrines and not doing what you're supposed to do. That's why they're held so heavily accountable, because it leads so many sheep or people astray. And doctrine needs to be taught verbatim, not what you think, feel, or hearsay, or lack thereof. And that
Leadership.
You don't understand when you have to
We're talking about circumcision. And the gentleman said, that he was criticizing the awakening movement through the Hebrew community. And he was saying, they talk about circumcision. Everything was pointed to Christ. Everything pointed to Christ, even the circumcision. I thought that was funny. He said it's a shadow. I said, that's strange. I said, circumcision was not a sign, was not essential or requirement of salvation. It did not make you righteous, because Abraham was righteous before he had the sign of circumcision. So you're telling me that something that was not, part of salvation, it's part of the covenant, it's the sign of the covenant. And we're going to talk about circumcision too, coincidentally. It's pointing to Christ. If that's the case, then you have a contradiction, because that means the covenant points to Mashiach. So he doesn't understand, and he's over here on a large platform speaking against those who believe in the Torah and the Messiah by saying things he has no understanding, none at all. So we see these all the time in our circles daily, how people are in leadership roles saying things like, if you practice the law, you're going to hell. That's a very outlandish statement if you know the truth. I'll digress, as my nephew would say. Anybody else? All right. We're going to do some reading in this one once we get past the next slide. So we need some help probably in this one. All right. So the priests and the people failed to teach, learn, and obey. And it starts, Paul talks about this in Hebrews 8. And we have to be careful looking at the whole picture because the translation, the translators, which it was Europe, not the Hebrews. These are people who were not the Hebrews translated our Bibles that we have today, have done some subtle changes to bring in their own dogma to the conversation. But if you pay attention to the context, you know they cannot be talking about who they're talking about. And we've already discussed this point in Hebrews 8 in prior lessons in this series. But I just want to point it out what we have here. Hebrews 8, 7, and 8. For if that first covenant that had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he said, behold, the day come, said Jehovah, when I will make a new, quote unquote, renewed, and right, covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. I remember previously we discussed that the word changing in here in reference to the law and to the priesthood, the word literally means transferring. It doesn't mean change. It means moving the authority from one priesthood to the other. It went from the Levitical priesthood to the order of Melchizedek. We've talked about that. We've also talked how that word covenant is italicized, meaning that it's inserted. Doesn't belong. So you have to understand who is this first by context. And if you start from verse 1 in this chapter, it says this. It speaks on Yahusha is our high priest, and that he now has a more excellent ministry as you read through verse 1 on down, because he's the mediator of a better covenant with better promises. And then verse 11 states that they will not teach every man anymore. Why? Because they originally failed at doing so, right? So now they're not going to depend on it. He's quoting Jeremiah 31:31 about the Ruach writing the law on our hearts. That's why. The Ruach is going to lead us into all truth. So when he says finding fault with them is not a covenant. Them is a people. He's talking about the priest, the priesthood. All right? So, all right, I just want to make sure we're on that page with me. And we're going to move into the next slide, proving that the priest did indeed fail during this window of time of the original covenant. All right, any questions or adds? All right, let's continue. All right, brother. The priest and the people failed to teach, learn, and obey. Please write Malachi 1 for me, 6 through 7.
Malachi 1, 6 through 7. All right. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a Adon, where is my fear? Saith Yahuwah of hosts unto you. O priest, that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that ye say, the table of Yahuwah is contemptible.
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 Contemptible. That's a hard word. My gosh. It's a hard word. Contemptible is the Hebrew word bazal. Bazal, to despise, holding contempt, disdain. Do you know that's what the church does today? You speak the law, they hold it in disdain. They despise the law. I want to look at this word contemptible because in the Hebrew, it tells you truly what it means. And before we do that, anybody want to add? pretty obvious, right? He's having a problem with the priest.
Right. At the last sentence, it says the table of Yahuwah is contemptible. What's on the table?
I'm not going to say.
What's on the table? Why is
the
it?
showbread? The showbread's on the table.
Oh, Minister Ronnie, don't say it. I was
Too slow, bro.
the menorah.
Too slow.
Brother Andrew, I was getting ready to say it too. I was getting ready to say it too.
I didn't want to be
The law, the Torah.
Yes, the
Minister Ronnie
showbread.
going to just say everything.
Well, that's what's on the table. So I just wanted the audience to understand it's not the table itself. Even though it says the table of Yahuwah is contemptible, I just wanted them to understand that it's what's on the table is the laws of Yahuwah that are contemptible in the eyes of the people that has caused the problem. So that's all I wanted to highlight, brother. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And it results in a people that behave this way.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like Minister Ronnie said, the menorah is on there, which is the light that shines on the bread. And the bread are the people, the 12 tribes.
Mm-hmm.
I understand now, as I've grown in my understanding, why you love the temple so much.
And just for clarification, the menorah and the bread are not on the same table. They're on separate tables. They sit across from each other. Just in case some of our
They sure
audience
do.
is wondering if we're implying that they're on the same table or they're in the same location. They're not.
That's a good
Can
point.
I make a comment?
Mm-hmm, brother, go ahead.
Not only did like Minister White, Minister Ronnie are absolutely correct. They despise the table and they despise what's on it, and they despise what is on the table, what it represents. The loaves of bread. When is the bread renewed? When is it being replaced with another bread? Exactly. Because when we go into Shabbat, we are renewed every Shabbat. We are renewed. We are refreshed. They hate that because it goes against their dogma and Western theology and the European theology. It goes against what they want to implement. And it's just everything is for nothing is for naught with the Most High. Everything's a calculated step, and I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, brother. That's true. Anybody else? Let's dig into this because I think it's going to point to exactly what Minister White and Minister Ronnie were just saying. So looking at the ancient Hebrew of this word is to despise, hold into contempt, disdain. In the ancient Hebrews, it says despise, to treat something as spoiled or no longer of value. And it's spelled with Bet, Zayin, and He. And the Bet is the house or the kingdom or the person, you, a temple, right? And a mattock could be a cutting tool, a farm tool, or a weapon. And the He represents the Ruach or the breath. So you can see this as a person who fights against the Ruach. When you behave this way, why is this contemptible or despising? Because the Ruach is the one that leads us into all truth. So like Minister White was saying, you've made the table. What's on the table? Contemptible. By your behavior towards it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it points to what Minister White and Minister Ronnie were saying in this definition. And we're going to continue in Malachi. He had more to say to this. Anybody have any adds to this? Or question?
I wanted to ask, is Aaron's rod also on the table? Aaron's rod?
No, it's not.
No, ma'am.
No? Okay.
It'll be in the ark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. All right, anyone else? All right, let's continue. Brother, I'm gonna let you read all of these Malachi, so you might as well keep reading for us, please.
Yes, sir. Malachi 1:8, verse 10. And if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person? Saith Yahuwah of hosts. And now I pray you, beseech him, that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been your means. Will he regard your persons? Saith Yahuwah of hosts. Who is there even among you that would shut the doors of naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith Yahuwah of hosts. Neither will I accept an offering at your hand. Ooh, that's straight denial.
That's because they were doing what Cain did. You know, they were giving offerings that weren't, they weren't perfect. They were giving lame, blind, damaged of some sort, speckled. They weren't doing their best towards y'all. He's like, shoot, give it to your governor. See if he'll take it. I bet you won't. That's what he's saying. If he's not going to take it, why would you give it to me?
Mm-hmm.
And brother, I think is the word still talking about the priest even at this point?
Yes, ma'am. That's who handles the sacrifice. Yes, ma'am. So the act of atonement, sin offering, whatever offering, these sacrifices were being done wrong. So it was a total screw up. In other words, what was on the table was a mess. Even the manner, even what was supposed to be the law, they were practicing it poorly. They were practicing wrong. They were not in obedience. So you have the sacrifice being wrong, you have the Torah being taught wrong, and you have the people resulting in a state of wrong. Because it starts with the priest. It starts with the leaders.
And by no
Minister White, isn't there a story? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Minister.
I was going to say, it by no means absolves the people of guilt, because how do the priests get the offerings? The offerings are brought to the priest by the people, and yet the people they do know that they're not supposed to be, to offer any lame or sick or blind. They know this, so that's their part in wrongdoing. And then the priest's part in wrongdoing is not inspecting it and accepting it as such. So both parties are guilty here. Both parties.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And what was the story where Yah came to Moses and accused Moses? Oh my gosh, I have to. You know what I'm talking about? Where he came to Moses, to the leader, to deal with the people. Or was it Joshua? I'm having a brain fart, Minister.
Oh, if you can tell me what was said, I might be able to help you.
Oh, I'm going blank. Maybe it'll come to me as we continue.
No worries.
There's an example of this, how the leader is held accountable, even though he was not at fault, but the people were.
Oh.
As well. So the people were held.
Joshua.
But he went to the Joshua.
Okay. Joshua, when they were fighting in the battle of Ai. Is that the one you're referring to? And Joshua?
Yes.
Yes.
And he came to Joshua, and everybody was suffering because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to continue with Malachi. Anybody have anything else to add?
Yes, I want to say this. It's true there's nothing new under the sun, because even though Joshua was not directly at fault, and the people were, even in the military, they say when you're an NCO or leadership, their success are theirs, but their failures are yours. Because if they failed in something, that means you failed to teach them or instruct them in a proper manner. Thank you.
It's funny, in that point, I heard a brother say, and to your point, it's true, they criticize us for keeping the Torah, right, keeping the law. But when it comes to their own laws, they follow the fundamental upholding of their law in the way we would do our own, such as what you just said there. Or do you ever see them throwing out the federal laws or state laws? They never do that. They don't do that with their own company.
Man, they'll keep a stop sign before they keep y'all's laws.
Absolutely. Yeah. They'll keep some obscure farm law that was created in 300 years ago, but they won't keep the laws that govern life. It's just how man is right now. So anybody else? All right, let's continue, brother. Read this one for me as well.
All right, gotcha. Sorry to get my phone off mute. All right. But ye have profaned it, in that ye say the table of Yahuwah is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith Yahuwah. And ye brought that which is horn, and the lame, and the sick, that ye brought an offering. Did I accept this of your hand? Said Yahuwah. But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his pocket a male, voweth and sacrificeth unto Adonai a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith Yahuwah of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Woo-wee!
I tell you, hold on one second, my screen. Can you all still see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me 1 second. My screens went out real quick. 1 second. Man, they go out, and then everything go out. I gotta figure out. All righty, we are back. Sorry, I had a slight technical glitch, but we are back. So as you can see, they were bringing anything to this offering. I mean, just profaning it, and felt that the duty to do this was weary. They were weary of it. They were tired, and if they did the right thing, they wouldn't have to do this so often anyway. But they were so full of sin, disobedience, that they had to tread the courts of Yah frequently. And Yah speaks to that in the book of Isaiah. So they were failing to obey and scoffing at the Torah. And this was a failure by all, just like Minister White was saying. All right? Any adds to this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight this one sentence where it says, and you brought that which was torn. Do you realize how serious of an offense that is? That means they brought something that had already been attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And it was either dead.
That's cold-blooded.
Isn't it?
Oh, that's cold.
Yeah.
You bringing a broken leg goat, a goat with a broken leg or torn hide because it was attacked by a wolf.
Yes.
You're bringing that to Yah?
Mm-hmm.
Have you lost your mind? I would be scared to do that.
True. That's why he said that.
Why would the great father of,
yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't understand it. Anyway, man, that's incredible. Anybody else? All righty. Let's continue. We're going to move to Micah and have one more verse that speaks to this. Brother, I'll have you read this final one for me, and I'll pick on somebody else afterwards. Micah.
Micah 3, verse 11, 12. All right. The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon Yahuwah and say, is not Yahuwah among us? None evil can come upon us. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest.
All right, thank you, brother. Doesn't it sound like what we see today?
Mm-hmm.
Do we not see this in the church today? They teach for hire, judge for reward, divine for money,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they think they're good. God's with them. God is with us. Jesus is with us. And none can come to us. None evil will come to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly the state that the world is in right now. And what happened to Zion when they did this? They got scattered to the four corners and got spanked real good. What is he going to do to the world?
Mm.
What is he going to do to all these who remain in this state? Those who resist this truth this time? If what has been done was not good enough, what will be done will be far worse, because there's not going to be no reprieve after this. It's a done deal once he moves his hand this time. Well, so before we go on and just summarize the original covenant after what we talked about in the last session and this session, is there anything anyone want to add? All right, let's continue. So the original covenant, or I like to call the old way, because we were talking about the way or the new and living way of the renewed covenant that's spoken of in Hebrews. That's why we've been talking about the old way or the original covenant and the renewed way or the renewed covenant, which we will talk about next. And in the last two lessons, we've talked about how the original covenant required animal sacrifices continuously, right? Paul talks about in Hebrews 10, verse 3. And only the high priest could go through the veil or had access to the ark of the covenant or the covenant. Hebrews 9:7. And it could not remove the consciousness of sin, all these sacrifices, right? Hebrews 10:2. And the high priest changed due to death because they were not immortal. Paul talks about that in Hebrews 7:15 through 16. And that we, at this time, were under the Levitical order, which was a shadow of what was to come. Hebrews 8:5, 10, 1. And the high priest and priest failed to teach Torah, which we just went through, Malachi and Micah 1 and 3 and so on. And that we talked also about how the Torah was taught and read by these priests, or supposed to be, correctly as well. It's not that they stopped. They just didn't do it right and correctly. And we see that in some of the teachings that we see in the Gospels or Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So what we really have been talking about, and Hebrews talks about this, is just the church don't teach it correctly, is that there was a failure in the priesthood, which was a shadow of what was coming, which was the forerunner, which was the Melchizedek order, which is Yahusha, our high priest forever. But the failure then of this priestly order was addressed in the renewing of the covenant, which we're going to start talking about in the next slide. All right? Any questions, any adds, anything? You know, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Another thing too is that I know we've been talking about Isaiah 1 and 11 very frequently, very often. When you look at that verse, some people may just look at it as Israel's sin as a whole. But when you look in Leviticus, you see that the bullock is one of the things that the priest himself is supposed to sacrifice for his own sin. So when you look back in Isaiah 1 and verse 11, it references the rams and the young bullocks and the goats. So not only was the people themselves
continually in sin, but it was the tribe of Levi as well, continually sacrificing for the same thing. So this is why Yah is so upset with the priests, because not only did they lead astray the children of Yashar, but they also themselves were continually committing the same thing and sacrificing for the same thing. So they were both in that same predicament. It wasn't just Yashar.
No, they were leading by example. They were leading by example, brother. That's what you're saying. Can you imagine if you're not very familiar with the Torah, and a lot of people didn't read and write then, so you were dependent on the priest, and you would go and you'll see the priest bringing a bull or an ox, and the ox was lame, and you saw him sacrifice, and you go, oh, shoot, I didn't have to bring this little perfect goat I got, which is worth a lot of money. I could have gave him that one that was sick the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that? As they say, the audacity.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you. And another thing, brother, about that circumcision statement that you and I were talking about. If the original covenant is a shadow, when does the shadow point to the one who cast it? Isn't the one that casting the shadow? When does the shadow go upward? Let's say what?
I was getting ready.
Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead.
I thought Gianni had. No. I'm sorry, brother Gianni, brother Andrew. I was going to say the shadow is always connected. It's never disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow is connected to the real thing. It will never disconnect. So that means the Sabbath. If the Sabbath, what we do with the Sabbath shouldn't need to come, that means the Sabbath is connected directly to you know who.
To the master.
He treated it as a correct, and he treated it as a standalone, but it's a shadow mimicking what was cast by the original. So when he says that it points to Christ, he's talking the truth, but he don't really understand what he's saying, because it's a sign of the covenant. It tickles me. It's just the more I think about it, the more I just shook my head. I called Gianni about this, raising my voice. Because you get tired of the statements of being accused wrong, and people don't listen, and they don't care to seek understanding. They just, they don't agree with you, they claim that you're wrong, but yet they don't look for any understanding. But that's my rant. So that happened yesterday.
And the thing is, Paul makes a separation between the promises and all those different things.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm pretty sure he says in the letter that there is, I forgot which letter it was, but he does discuss it in the letter. I think it's chapter 4. It's one of the ones we went over, Brother Drew, quite often. But he says it himself that it, as we discussed yesterday, it does not profit. And since the Pharisees laid all those burdens on the people and got them into performing this want to be seen righteous act, it totally got us all misconstrued, because now here we are thousands of years later still confused on the matter, not understanding. So
yep. What tickles me is that the church don't understand that it's a sign of the covenant. So who's being circumcised? Everybody? When the covenant was really between two parties? When did the parties change? I didn't know I could do that with my contracts. Maybe I should do that with my lease, since I don't like where I live.
It's called subleasing.
I just get to what it's called, ministers?
Subleasing.
Yeah, they're gonna call it sub. See how happy they'll be if they gotta let you do that. And there's no subleasing policy in our covenant.
Correct.
So what they did was they changed the guest list.
They changed the guest list, changed all the subwriting, all that stuff. They even got lawyers on their side. All right, so now we're going to move into talking of the renewed covenant. All right?
Mhm.
And by talking through this renewed covenant, we're going to start seeing how this one's laid out, where they're very similar. They just have subtle differences. And then we'll do a quick summary of the two. All right, so let's move to the next slide. Minister, you mind reading Joel for me? The renewed covenant is placed on our inward parts. Look at the difference. You had a physical delivery, a physical teaching, a physical authority by the Levitical priesthood. Now, all of a sudden, this renewed covenant is in the inside parts of us by the Ruach. Please continue, Minister.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahuwah shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as Yahuwah hath said, and in the remnant whom Yahuwah shall call.
Thank you, Minister. This is the verse that Paul quotes in Romans where he said, excuse me, whoever should call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. This is the verse Paul is quoting, and it does not say Lord. It says Yahuwah, and it does not say Jesus. It says Yahuwah, the name of Yahuwah. For those who are in the Christian audience, Christian church in the audience, you need to understand what Paul is speaking to. There is no New Testament, right? So the renewing of the covenant requires the pouring out of the Ruach. And in Mount Zion, there is deliverance for the remnant of Yah has chosen. It's what Yah has done. This means not the world or the billion of Christians, but the remnant of his people. Why is this understanding important? It's because we don't read in a kingdom mindset. How is a kingdom going to be established without its citizens? And how is a royal priesthood not going to be established if the people who are supposed to be priests are not established? The priesthood have a job to do. So the priests must get their act in order to do the next step, because the nations of the world are waiting on us. We have a job to go out. We have a job to teach. We have a job to tell the people of Yahuwah, we are the way to Yahuwah. That's what the Ark of the Covenant is. We are the way to Yahusha. I'm sorry, to be more specific. And that's what we've been talking about. And we're going to constantly talk about this because it just adds into the lesson. All right? Anybody have any questions on this?
I wanted to make a comment that earlier you said about that if we, those that are obeying the law, I think you said people are saying people that are obeying the law are going to perish. But the question is, what are you teaching? What is the nation of Israel supposed to be teaching? You're teaching nothing else but obedience. Obeying the Torah. What else is there to teach? But obedience to the Torah. Obedience to the law. We've had enough grace talks. And the grace talks we've had are not scriptural or biblical. So it's going to take the nation of Israel it's going to take the nation of Israel to walk off the truth and to teach the truth, because the truth is not being taught in the Temple of Diana right now.
Hey, I wonder how many are going to catch that statement, Minister Ronnie.
Yeah, very few. He that have ears, let him hear.
Come on now.
Better go back to Paul's letter and try to grab it.
It's in there.
It's in there. If you have an eye to see it. Bless y'all. Come to the house of Selah. We'll help you with those eyes.
As the scriptures say, we will help you with the eyes of your understanding.
That's right. That's right. All right. Minister White, read the next one for me, please.
Okay. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, but Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for Yahuwah dwelleth in Zion.
This is very specific. This is very specific. It's not talking about a whole world. And it's funny how the original scriptures or Old Testament never spoke of it any other way, really. And then you get this new stuff, and all of a sudden it's changed at the last minute. The remnant does not come from the world. It comes from Yah's people.
Mhm.
And it's by the Ruach, which we just read on the previous slide, that Yah cleansed his people. The Ruach HaKodesh was sent after Yahusha returned to the Father to dwell in us, to lead us to all truth. And we have scripture easily in what they call the New Testament that supports this. And we'll read through a couple of them on the next slide. Just to point out that all of this lines up. The prophecies of Joel, the prophecies of Ezekiel, the prophecies of Jeremiah, what we read in Isaiah, and now we're going to go into the New Testament and some other verses as well. All right, so any questions or adds with this one? All right, let's continue. Sister Sarah, you want to read these for me, please?
Sure. John 14:16-17. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Ruach of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you. John 15:26. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, even the Ruach of truth, which proceeded from the Father, he shall testify of me.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to have you read the next slide, too, when we get there. So you see the Ruach came. Yahusha says he dwelled with you, but he will dwell in you when he comes for you. That's the difference maker. Because it's the Ruach that writes these laws in our hearts, and on our minds and our hearts. It's the Torah, right? That's what's being written on our hearts. And it's by this Ruach, by Yah's Ruach, that's doing this. That's the difference maker from the renewed covenant and the original covenant. And we're going to read more scriptures to support this. Anybody have anything they want to add? These are common. These are well read. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, just notice that when the Comforter comes, it is Yahusha that determines who is sent to, because he says, whom I will send unto you from the Father. So the Ruach is received by us, sent by Yahusha, coming from the Father. Even the Heavenly Father doesn't bypass his Son. It doesn't come directly from the Father. It's sent by his Son. His Son is still the mediator.
Next verse is a verse that we're going to read next slide will support this, and that supports the structure of the ark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to give too much away because we're going to talk about it, but the Ark of the Covenant is set up that way. It has to go through Yahusha because Yahusha reigns over his people.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that. Anybody else? All right, let's continue. Sister Sarah, please read these three for us.
John 16:13. Howbeit when he, the Ruach of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will shew you things to come. Acts 1:4-5. And being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which, said he, ye have heard of me. For John truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh not many days hence. Acts 1:8. But ye shall receive power. After that the Ruach HaKodesh is come upon you, And ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth.
And one more.
Acts 2, 1 through 4. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and as it sat upon each of them, and they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak with other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance.
All right, thank you, sister. So in the previous slide, we saw that John said that the Ruach will only speak what it hears and it's been given. So there is someone above speaking and directing the Ruach, and that is Yahusha, the mediator, like Minister White is saying. So the Ruach only does what's been given to him, and it will speak of only Yahusha. And what is Yahusha? The Word made flesh, the Torah. So this is the renewed covenant. This is the renewed covenant. The Ruach HaKodesh guiding us into all truth, writing the commandments on our hearts, our inward parts. And we're going to finally start talking about that. But I believe we're coming up on an hour, and I don't want to get into it. We're going to start talking about what's in Deuteronomy and what's in the prophets that speak to this specifically. All right. Any adds or questions to this? I think it was pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Man. Yeah. We'll call it a night tonight. It'll be a little shorter than normal, but if we start, I'm afraid that we won't be stopping in the middle of something. And this is a good point for transitioning. So in the next lesson, we will talk on how the Ruach was being sent to write upon our heart this covenant. And we'll speak upon that. So I hope you join us in the coming weeks. We're getting close to finally speaking of the fullness of what the ark is. It is necessary to understand the old, to understand the renewed, so you can understand what the physical Ark of the Covenant was and what the true representation of the Ark of the Covenant is. And you know that by understanding the original and renewed covenant as well. So please continue next week as we continue in this discussion. And shalom for everyone who has joined us.
And if you like this video, don't forget to give us a like, share, and subscribe for future videos. Shalom.